Now, to follow up on my previous video about working on the shadow as part of a way to do something about this genocide and this, and in fact, it's about working on the very cause of how humanity has got here, in the sense that it's the fear of the other, it's the accusation of the other. It's not seeing yourself in the other. And the problem is that our society has had the focus of the market, the focus of the production, the focus and the focus of money and power, yeah, mainly because it's the society of avoidance. It's avoiding to see our shadow. It's avoiding to see our dark side. It's avoiding to see our shit. Yeah, it's working on ourselves. Yeah, which is the most fascinating journey ever, because in fact, it's humanity. Our being, the human being, is so rich and so complex and so interesting, and you can look at yourself, and it's the most fascinating journey. Yeah. Anyway, when you are doing this journey and when you're interested in all your parts and your multiple identities and your ever-changing identities, then you can afford to look at your shadow and to look at your shit. Yeah? Because this is the very first thing, to look at your shit, because, well, please see my other video, I don't want to repeat myself. This video is about envy. It's about one of those emotions. Can we call it emotion? It's not an emotion, it's an attitude, it's a feeling, yeah, the feeling of envy. One of those feelings that when it's not conscious, yeah, when you're not conscious of it and when you don't recognize it, it becomes incredibly destructive. Yeah, incredibly destructive. And you know, I've had a partner from Senegal, and we had a child. Yeah, Yassine, my daughter Yassine, who is half Senegalese, so she is black. Yeah, not so black as her father, and not white as me. You know, so she's, but she's black. And she recognized herself as black, yeah? And I remember that when I went to Senegal the first time, I remember that I was in Dakar, and I was just in awe at the beauty of all the people, at this physical dignity, this incredible strength and natural dignity. I don't know, it's just something physical of these bodies, this pride. I don't know, it's what's so beautiful. And I was like in awe, these women carrying these huge dishes of fruit and with this dignity and with this, I don't know, they were so like royals, you know, like this incredible dignity and class, I don't know. And suddenly, when I was like there in awe and looking around, and suddenly I see a white couple. And they looked so, I don't know, so different. And so poorly, the physical part was so, I don't know, it was ugly, you know. That was, of course, my perception. But then I realized, and I had this thought, because I have been working for a long time on my own envies, yeah. I realized, I thought, perhaps it was this envy, you know, of the white supremacist who hates the black and mistreated the black and enslaved the black, you know. And so this idea had been going on in my mind, and because I'm very interested in the human shadow, I've been reading about Hitler as well. Because of course, as I said in my previous video, the people who do horrible things are there for us to mirror ourselves there and see in which ways we do resemble this person, yeah? Because we cannot say, oh, he's not a human being. No, he's a human being. Of course, perhaps his humanity is lost, but... And so, reading a certain book that, by someone called Sims, who talks about the fact that Hitler was fascinated with the Brits and with English Americans, yeah? And he was really envious how this writer explains Hitler's view of the Brits. He was incredibly envious of this pride of being British, of this high self-esteem of being British, in fact, Germany had just lost the war, and the collective feeling of Germany was very, very bad, and in terms of self-esteem, it was a collective, very low self-esteem for having lost the war and for having had to pay a lot because of the Versailles Treaty and so on. And so he was incredibly envious of the Brits, but also of the Americans and the powerful American Jews. So this was something that of course, I think that this envy was part of it. Of course, then there was his racial views and so on. But the fear of the Brits, the fear of the Jews, that the Jews might control the world and so on, that was the sort of the core that brought him to do what he did, to do what they did, yeah. And it's the same thing with Israelis, with a big part of the Israelis, as we know, not all of them, of course, but the Israeli Jews, envying the Palestinians. And this, I mean, I've been looking at a lot of videos from Palestinians from Gaza, and actually there is one of them on Snapchat called Ahmed Sami, who portrays the Palestinian people in their normal life, even now during the war, and how they eat and how they talk and I can't understand Arabic, but it's just so beautiful to see them. And there's this beauty of, there's this something so natural and incredibly fearless. And the more they are mistreated, the more they are powerful inside. So I'm pretty sure that, and I said it on another video about Gaza, that the Israeli Jews and the Israeli far right are profoundly envious of the Palestinians, profoundly envious. And yes, of course, there are other reasons, but the envy is a very powerful thing, especially when you're not conscious of it. Yeah, it can become extremely destructive. Yeah, and I'm now going to go to my own envies. Okay, in my video "Someone to Love," I talk about the envy of my sister towards my sisters, and actually towards one of my sisters who had an accident in her eye when she was very little, and she had this eye. She spent her childhood with a patch on her eye, but then in her teenage years she became so strong, so beautiful, so creative. So in a way, it's my theory. Like you touch rock bottom, but then you can transform that stigma and that touching rock bottom into incredible strength and energy, into an incredible creativity. Yeah, and so I think that we all sisters envied her. Yeah, and I actually talk about this envy towards my sisters on my video, and this is something that I've always seen, because I've never been afraid of feeling vulnerable and of looking at my shit, because I was a drug addict and a prostitute, so I came out in my teenage years with these labels. So I wasn't afraid to see other labels, and to see other shit, So of course therapy has allowed me, to see beyond all that shit, But I was like born, not born, but in my teenage years I was like surrounded by my whole shit. So I'm pretty used to looking at that, and I'm not afraid of looking at that, and that's why I can make this video and tell you about my shit, And other envies, which are still there, because with my sisters it's very different in the sense that, okay, I can envy my sister's house because it's so beautiful, yeah, and other things, of other people, it's not a problem, because it's recognized. It doesn't become destructive because it's recognized. But the thing is that another envy which is a bit more difficult for me to talk about is the envy of other artists who have done something a bit similar to what I do, but who have had a huge success. And because it just touches my desire. Since I was really small, I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be a star. This is something. The desires, sometimes, it's hard to talk about your shit and your shadow, but some desires are also difficult to even mention, But I've always wanted to be a star, I wanted to be famous and everything. But of course there was my extreme pain, which, was a priority, to deal with, So thankfully, I haven't succumbed to this desire of becoming famous, because there were always other priorities, But the thing is that, I got lost. No, I wanted to be famous, and I wanted to, and so I wanted to become an actress at some point. I studied theater, and I dreamed about becoming famous, Hollywood star or something like that. Actually, I was always saying, I was born in 1962, and when Marilyn Monroe died, so, I'm going to replace her, something like that, But it's interesting because my work has allowed me as well, my mission is allowing me to always put priorities close to, to sort of overshadow this need or this desire to become famous. And actually what my mission is already doing is that it transforms this desire to be famous into something that is actually useful for my mission. Because of course, my desire to be famous now is about, divulging my philosophy and divulging my method so that other people can use it, and it's about being useful. Because of course, being useful has been a much higher priority than being famous, in the sense that I used to be the problem, I used to be the problem in the family, I used to be a walking problem, the heroin addict and the prostitute. So I used to be the problem. So when you're used to being the problem and feeling problematic, not for everybody, I guess, but for me, I just needed so much to be useful to others, and so that my work could make some impact, you know. So this has been the priority and is the priority, you know. But again, so for example, these other, I'll mention two artists of whom I'm always, you know, envious of their success. So one is Marina Abramovich. Of course, it's like the biggest artist, the most successful artist in the world, probably right now, or the most famous. And of course, there is a huge admiration, because being able to admire somebody helps us to transform the envy into something else, you know, admiring somebody and saying, yeah, I would like to be like that, or to get what she has got, you know, something like that. So I admire her, Abramovich, for having, I mean, she made performance art recognized as an art, you know, and the things that she did were very much in a way similar to my philosophy, because, you know, she was really going to face what was most stigmatized and what was most difficult. She was working on the violence, she was working on so I think that and of self-harm and of the violence towards oneself, towards the other. I mean, it's extremely interesting, and what she has done, you know. At the same time, I realize that I tend to criticize her now and say, well, now she's not producing anything significant anymore, or something like that. And my criticizing of her soothes my envy. So that's very interesting. That's why the envy can become very destructive, because in fact, attacking the other can soothe your envy so that you feel better about yourself, you know. But of course, I mean, being aware allows you to, you know, to minimize the effects of that, you know, the consequences. Whereas in the case of Palestinians, and of Israeli Jews towards Palestinians, I think this is gone absolutely crazy. I think that, of course, the impunity has increased this sickness, and this was something that I was saying in my previous video. Yeah. Another artist of which I am envious of her success is Nan Goldin, and because Nan Goldin has huge success worldwide. She's one of the most well-known photographers of all times, you know, and of the contemporary photographers, yeah. But the thing is that there are similar experiences with me. In fact, some people have told me, your work my previous work reminds me of Nan Goldin, and so on. The thing is that I have used the self-portrait, yeah, and because she was documenting her life, and she was taking self-portraits too. She was documenting her life while she was taking drugs. In this period of her life of sex and drugs and rock and roll, making them become quite mythical, yeah. And in fact, it's like, oh, it's so cool, you know, the sex and drugs and rock and roll. Whereas, since I started taking pictures after beginning my recovery, and as a sort of recovery from drugs, my work is about recovery through the self-portrait, and it's about expression of emotions, and it's about going deep, deep, deep inside me, you know. So it's cooler, it's sort of more famous, and this is my sort of criticism of Nan Goldin. although of course I'm going to work on that, and you know, it can, at some point it was like enraging me, you know. So it can, this criticism to soothe the envy can become very also, you know, yeah, can trigger a lot of anger. Anyway, my criticism is that, you know, why does she become, and this is not towards her, but it's towards society, you know. It's why Nan Goldin, who is documenting sex and drugs and rock and roll, is far more famous than somebody. There are many other reasons, of course, you know, partly that I'm not a slave of being famous, you know, and I haven't given my whole life to it, you know. Anyway, and many other reasons, but yeah, of course I'm lost. When I do too many parentheses, I get lost. Yeah, than someone who is working and divulging art as a process of recovery, you know, from sex and drugs and rock and roll, you know, from drugs especially. So, yeah, so my proposal is that with envy, for example, you know, you take a video of yourself. It has to be beautiful, you know. I have spent some time in looking at the light here, and so that you can see my t-shirt, of course, my Catherine Hamnett's t-shirt. But also, you know, I spent some time making this image beautiful, yeah? A beautiful light, a beautiful background, and so on. So you spend some time looking at where you can shoot your video. You have to be completely on your own. And then you're going to, and improvise. Perhaps you can think about it first and take some notes, but improvise, don't read anything, you know. Improvise, because the video itself allows you as well to elaborate on what you're talking about, and it's creative. It allows you to you know, to give some space for new ideas about what you're talking about. So it's extremely interesting, and of course, making a video with that part of your shadow or your shit, as I usually call it. Why is this useful? Instead of talking with a friend about it, or talking to yourself, or thinking about it. It's very useful because, first of all, you're making a video, and regardless of the fact that you might not want to show it to anybody for now, it's meant to be an object of communication. So you could be showing it to somebody else, you know. And you're making it beautiful, and so you're making an object with this shit, and making an object of something difficult and bad or painful. Making an object allows you to detach from it, to be able to look at it, and therefore to be able to accept it as part of yourself. And of course, when you are able to accept most parts of yourself, or as part of yourself, and recognize them and be aware of them, you can use them, you know, because of course everything is useful. Everything is useful. And so, and of course there is also another effect of making a video with your own shadow part, which is that it's a cathartic process. You are liberating yourself from that, you know, and you're accepting it, and you're looking at it, and perhaps one day you'll be able to show it to somebody, or to publish it on YouTube, and therefore do what I'm doing, you know. You become extremely strong, you know, and healthy, you know. Our health is, our physical health is also very, very, very influenced by the unrecognized shadow, yeah. So, and of course, emotions are very useful with this, so you can you know, there's a video in which I talk about, I give the instructions for the emotions exercise, you know, so it's, look in my channel, emotions exercise, and you'll find the instructions to take pictures of yourself, you know, triggering difficult emotions. And yeah, so it's extremely useful, and also it facilitates after a while, even though you might not be used to taking videos of yourself. At the beginning, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like in lockdown and everything, and this desire of mine of becoming a YouTuber really exploded in during the pandemic, and I just became, and at the beginning I was like, oh, what am I going to say? And I was feeling uneasy and, you know, not really fluid, but, you know, quite quickly it became really easy, you know, it became really like the feeling of talking to the world, of being able to talk to the world, regardless of how many people are going to look at this video, it doesn't matter, you know. So don't be afraid of, you know, just go with it and just document what you're thinking, and it doesn't matter, you don't need to be, you know, perfect in your talk, you know. So, and it's incredibly empowering, you know, and not only it is empowering, but it is very useful for the humanity. Please look at my previous video about shadow work as artivism, because we do need to, you know, I think that if we all did that, the world would change completely, you know, regardless of the fact that when you're looking at your shadow, you own your shadow, and therefore you're not going to put the shadow, your unrecognized shadow, on top of somebody else and attack or judge that person, you know, because you know, that's the extreme right cannot bear looking at their own shadow, you know. So they start, so the relationship with the other is a terrorist, you know, and they're going to attack the other, you know, the other who is different, you know, in order to feel good about themselves, you know. So taking their own shadow and putting it on top of somebody else, you know. So that's why it's so important that we all look at our shadow, especially those of us who are pro-Palestine, who are, you know, pro-human, you know, and that are, you know, thinking of the ways that we can influence this bloody moment. Yeah? Thank you, please like and subscribe, and I will continue making more videos about this. The next one will be probably about arrogance, but also about power dynamics. Thank you, bye.